everyone, David and Karen of FilmCourage here. We are on the line with Lucas McNelly. Lucas McNelly is the filmmaker whose Year Without Rent campaign took the indie film world by storm, where he raised over $12,000, $8,000 of which in the last 24 hours of the campaign. The Year Without Rent project entails Lucas traveling across country to volunteer his time on various indie film sets. And we are pleased to speak with him. Hello, Lucas.
Thank you for joining us,
yeah,
Lucas.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, this is great to sort of connect with you. You're currently in San Francisco, is that right?
Yeah, I am somewhere in San Francisco. I have no idea where. In a kitchen.
Can you give us an idea of all the productions you've worked on? I mean, when did you begin actually going out and taking part in these productions? Was that around February?
Mid-February.
Mid-February.
Either the 17th or the 18th. I kind of lost track which day we started.
Okay. And right now it's May 24th, 2011. So how many productions, can you sort of estimate how many you've been involved with so far?
Between productions and like events like EgoFest, stuff like that, it's got to be over 20 by now, I would think.
Wow.
It's somewhere there. I was going to figure it out before I got on the phone. Before I got on Skype with you, because I knew you would ask me that, and I totally forgot.
And I'm wondering, of these productions, have there been anywhere you haven't quite fit in, or you weren't really needed? And if so, how did you handle that?
There's been some where I'm needed less than others. You know, you can always use somebody to carry a C-stand and help unload the truck faster, or load the truck up faster, or whatever. And so, the more I'm needed, the fewer photos I take. And the less video I do, because I'm doing stuff and carrying stuff and whatever. And there's been a couple projects where they've just wanted me, they've just had me on to do video and photo, like EgoFest. Nice. Phil Holbert basically just wanted me to do that sort of thing.
Nice.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't think I've had anywhere I didn't fit in. It's always tricky the first day when you come into a production. Because everyone's kind of, if you come in halfway through, everyone's already got their momentum and their working relationships and whatnot figured out. So, like on Nor'easter, the very first, I got there near the end of one of the days, and one of the first questions I got asked from one of the grips was if I'd ever been on a film set before. And I said, yeah, a couple here or there. So, there's always that sort of process of figuring that out.
Wow, you know, and as a I don't know. I mean, you're coming in to these sets. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm trying to expand on the same thing. I mean, so for the most part, I mean, have they been pretty welcoming to having you on set?
Oh yeah, everyone's been really accommodating and really welcoming. They're happy to have help for the most part. They're a little worried about what I might write or what I might say about the production, and every single production asks me if all the other productions are as disorganized as theirs is.
That's right.
That's the question I get every single time. They go, well, how do we compare? Are we cooler than the other productions, or are the other productions cooler than us? And so that's kind of interesting.
A sense of competition a little bit, maybe.
It's a little bit of there's a little bit of a sense of competition. Or just, I think people just want to see how, because they do their thing, you know, over in Hartford or wherever, and they want to see how what they do in Hartford compares to what people are doing in Minnesota or Seattle or something.
So do you find that in some instances, like they're almost rolling out the red carpet for you to sort of like schmooze and sway you in a certain direction? So that you'll write more favorable things about what they're doing?
I mean, maybe a little, but I think that doesn't last very long, because then people get really overwhelmed with how much work they have to do, and then they just kind of forget I'm there. And then I'll just start sticking cameras in their face, and, you know, there's that first day, that first time you stick a camera in someone's face, they're like, oh, no, not me. Yeah. And then they just get used to it and ignore you.
And of the filmmakers or the different people on the set, how many of them are aware of what you're doing versus those who, hadn't heard about it? Like, how well known is this across these sets that you're on?
The directors all know, obviously, because that's usually who I've talked to before I even got there. And most of those people are people who already knew about the project before I got in contact with them, or they got in contact with me or whatever. It's usually the grips who don't know what the hell is going on or who this person is, and they're usually the ones that don't care.
Yeah.
And actors sometimes know, have heard about it, but usually haven't. But they're usually the most interested because they figure they can get the most publicity out of it.
You know, before I forget, I know you had a very interesting observation about the filmmakers who are on social media, you know, and sort of how together they are, as opposed to the ones that aren't on social media and really seem to be disorganized. Can you just sort of share your thoughts on that for us?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a bunch of cancellations, and very few of them come from people who are socially media active. Because I think there's, you know, if you make a film in a vacuum, if your film gets canceled or delayed or rescheduled or whatever, no one really cares other than you and your cast and crew. But if you have 1,000 people following you on Twitter and you're telling everybody about this film you're going to make, and then the film doesn't get made, you know, it's kind of a bit of a peer pressure thing, and, you know, nobody wants to do that, which is the whole idea with weight loss things, where they say to tell everybody how much weight you're trying to lose, so then you'll be motivated to keep doing it. So I think there's maybe more incentive to find a way to salvage a project when it falls apart, because every project falls apart at some point.
Yeah.
You know, you guys are filmmakers. The filmmaker who hasn't had a project fall apart on them is a liar.
Yeah. No, you know. Yeah. You know, on our side, we're just sort of, we just continue to push our way through the post-production process on Goodbye Promise. So, yeah, you know, it feels like at every step along the way, you know,
a new surprise.
Yeah, there's a new surprise, and it's trying to fall apart on you, and you have to continue to do all you can to keep it together.
When we were filming Up Country, it fell apart between when we raised the money on Kickstarter and the start of shooting. It fell apart, I think, 3 times, and that was a month in between those 2 dates. So I mean, it happens, and then you just have to figure out a way around it, because those are the people I think who survive in indie film are not the people who are that much more talented than everybody. I think they're just more stubborn than everybody else. You know, and they're just like, well, I don't have a backup plan for this year, so I have to make a movie. So I'm going to make a movie, and however that's going to end up happening is how it ends up happening.
Interesting. You know, and sticking with sort of the productions you've been on, I'm curious, what are the cameras that these productions are using? You know, because, you know, here you are, you're sort of, you know, you're on the forefront of indie productions across the U.S. Are you seeing a lot of the Red camera? Are you seeing a lot of the DSLR? Is there one camera that stands out?
It's a lot of Red and it's a lot of DSLR. It seems to either be the Red or the 5D or the 7D are mostly what I'm seeing. And, you know, they'll have it on a rig and they'll have a couple extra lenses floating around depending on their budget and how many they could get their hands on for how much. But it seems to be a lot of Red and DSLRs.
Okay.
And how large are the crews that you're working with?
The biggest crew was probably 10 crew members total, maybe 15, something like that. Mattson Tomlin's project had a kind of a rotating crew so he'd have people come in for a little bit and then go out. So it was hard to really gauge how many people he had working on that. And he had a big cast on one day where he had, like, I don't know, 10 to 15 extras doing all sorts of dancing stuff. So that was kind of big in scale in some ways. And Nor'easter was kind of big in scale in terms of the crew and everything. But we were also out on an island off the coast of Maine. So I got the impression they got as many people as they could convince to come out to Maine in February.
You know, I guess overall, I mean, it does sound like you're working in an intimate environments on these productions. You know, 15 people. That's a pretty intimate crew.
Yeah, it's the pretty small crew, but I mean, at the budget levels, I imagine that's about where it starts to become cumbersome.
Yeah,
is around 15 people. You know, and if you're shooting for 2 weeks or whatever, then I mean, that's just what happens, I guess. I mean, I'm kind of curious. I think I'm going to be down in LA for Favor, and I'm really curious to see how big of a crew Paul Osborne has.
Oh, nice.
Because something tells me he knows everybody. You know?
Yeah, interesting. You know, and from like the directing standpoint, you know, here you are, you have a chance to be side by side with directors. You get a chance to be on all these film sets. So, sort of, what are you picking up? I mean, how is this sort of impacting, you know, the scope of how you look at it, you know, and maybe moving forward once you come back to your own production, can you kind of just give us some things that you're learning along the way here?
Yeah, I'm stealing stuff from people like every day, which is nice because I just sit there and I watch somebody, and I watch, you know, Chris and Lindy Bousted on Summer Home, and I see how they're interacting with their actors and how they're interacting with their DP, and I think that's a lot of what you pick up is how the directors manage a set and how they manage a cast and crew, and everyone does it a little differently. Like Matt and Tomlin, for example, would go around every couple hours to pretty much everybody and ask them how they were doing and if they needed anything. Oh. And you don't get that a lot.
That's nice.
From a director. You know? And you sort of get a sense of what works and what doesn't work in terms of approaches with people. And I mean, that's what directing is. It's managing people.
Totally.
I mean, anyone can do a storyboard and figure out where the shot list should be.
Can you give us some specific examples in terms of what to do, what not to do, and anything that comes to mind?
I think the big thing to do is just to listen to people. You know, I think the directors that don't do well are the ones that have their, and I'm an auteurist, but you have your vision, and then your vision is gospel, and nothing else can happen in that vision. Those don't seem to work very well, but the ones where they're actively soliciting opinion, advice, or input, or whatever from the DP or from the actors or from whoever else, you know, I think those are the projects that seem to run the most smoothly because they're able to take that stuff and work it into their vision. So I don't think they lose the auteur stuff, but they're able to make it a stronger piece overall.
So the ones that are flexible in terms of the feedback, they don't put up a wall so much? Yeah,
you got to be flexible with feedback, and because something's going to go wrong, you have to be flexible in terms of fixing that. You know, we shot Summer Home. No one had seen the location before, other than the actress, and so she would describe it to them, and they would all figure out what they were going to do based on that. And then we got there, and it was like, oh, this is not how I pictured this at all. And so then it was a real all hands on deck. How do we shoot this? You know, how do we figure out the best way? What's our new shot list, and what's our new thing, and how can we use what's here?
Now, of most of the productions you've been on, they've all been out of the LA, New York metro areas. So sometimes people question the talent that comes from outside those two places. What's your take on this? What have you seen?
I've seen a lot of talent. I mean, some of it was from New York and LA, just people that were imported. But, you know, there seemed to be a lot of talented people in Seattle. I saw the DP in Seattle, Tamagota, was really talented. And I think I don't really even know how much he's done, but he did stuff like he was hand-holding filters over, because they didn't have a matte box. And he was hand-holding them over part of the frame, which was kind of crazy ridiculous. Nor'easter was all New York people who had come up to Maine. But the casts have been really pretty strong, and they've come from pretty much everywhere. So I don't know that it's necessarily that your really good talent has to be in New York and LA. I mean, it might be, but I remember talking to someone and saying, like, just from my filmmaking experience, I've never done a SAG film because I've never had a situation in casting where a SAG actor has been better than a non-SAG actor. You know? And that's just, talent is talent. And sometimes it's in LA and sometimes it's in Boise, Idaho. You know? Yeah. And some people want to live in Boise, Idaho because I hear the driving in LA is terrible. You know?
Well, I guess you're going to experience it pretty soon.
You'll find out, yeah.
And I'm wondering, too, how has this last 6 months been for you in terms of your newfound celebrity? What are some of the new realizations that you've come to about success, haters versus the supporters?
Oh yeah, we had some haters. Some people don't like me now. I'm not really sure why, because Sherry Candler told me not to read it. But I kept getting the second or third hand version of it wherever I would go somewhere, where someone would be like, "Oh, what's with all these people who don't like you? What's going on with that?" I'm like, I don't know. I think it's. I don't think of myself as a celebrity. I mean, maybe I have a little more of a target on my back, and maybe I get retweeted more. I think I got recognized at a film festival, which was kind of weird.
Cool.
Which is the value of wearing a Red Sox hat everywhere, I guess. But I was able to sneak into a film festival based on my so-called celebrity. So that was kind of fun.
Wait, so which film festival was that you snuck
into? It
into?
was Seattle International.
Oh, okay.
All right, so tell us the story, because
Yeah.
we understand.
I have my bracelets right here.
You got the bracelet on, but tell us the story, because somehow you mentioned FilmCourage and you end up getting into this red carpet event or something like that.
Yeah, so maybe you guys are famous. I think that's the lesson for this story. So I was in Seattle, and Phil Seneker said, "Hey, if you're going to be in town long enough for the Red Gala, you should come to the Red Gala. I can get you a ticket, so don't worry about it." I went, "Okay, great." So then the day rolls around, and I can't get Phil on the phone at all. I can't get him on Twitter. I can't get him on the phone. I can't text him. Nothing. So I'm like, well, all right. So I look up the thing, and I figure I'll just go down there and find him, because he's not going to not go. And I remember him saying something about his tickets were at will call. So I go, and I can't find him. I find time to go to the DP from the summer home, and I find Chris and Lindy Bousted eventually, but I can't find Phil. So I find someone who works there, and I say, "Hey, I'm supposed to have a ticket, blah, 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 blah," and I write for FilmCourage, and blah, 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 and they sort of pass me up the line of people who knew things, and I pull out my phone, and I'm like, no, look, I really do. I write for one of your media partners, and they gave me a ticket, and gave me drink tickets, and then I found Phil inside, who was apparently working.
I like how they not only gave you tickets, but they gave you drink tickets as well.
That's good.
2 drinks, and then Phil and I snuck into the VIP section we didn't watch the film because we're filmmakers, and there was a free bar. So we went directly to the bar, hung out there during the film, met lots of cool people, and drank for free. I didn't even have to use my drink ticket. I still have it.
And I don't want to spend too much time on the haters, but I just want to go back to something just real quick, and that is, of your experience, how much do you think that people don't think that what you're doing is worth anything versus they wish they had done it? And it's more of their own internal thing, and they project it onto you.
I think it's probably they wish they were doing something. Because it's really easy to have time to do that if you're not doing anything.
Right.
No one I know who's really working, who's actively doing projects, has time to create fake identities online and fight with people. It's just, but I guess, I don't know, maybe at Starbucks during your break you can do that. I'm not sure.
Wow.
I'm not sure what their deal is. But I have a motto where or I guess not really a motto, but I don't listen to anybody who doesn't put their real identity on it. And I don't care if it's complimentary or not. Because if you don't have enough courage, I guess, or enough, you don't believe enough in what you're saying to put your reputation behind it, then it's not worth anything. And it's not worth your time to read, or someone else's time to read or respond to, or anything. They are fun to make fun of, though.
And David and I were talking yesterday about a situation where we needed to tie up some loose ends with an individual. And we both looked at each other and were like, you know what? This comes back to Lucas McNelly's post, "Filmmakers, get your stuff together."
Yeah.
So I'm cleaning it up a little bit.
Sure,
but
yeah.
Where did that develop from, that thing about filmmakers not having their stuff together, and why do you think that is?
I think it's, and I think it goes back to when you watch bad indie films, they're always badly written because nobody wants to do 2 extra drafts of a script, because that's boring. Everybody wants to be on set and they want to be filming. And so I think the danger is a lot of times we kind of gloss over some of that other stuff, and I do it too, in order to get into production, because that's the fun part. And so we're not real worried about the random crap that you have to put together in order to get your film off the ground. But I mean, part of it is just, I think people don't think of it, they think because they're an artist, they can just sort of be la-di-da, whatever, and they don't look at it like a business or like being in middle management. Because it's effectively what it is being in middle management. You've got to deal with all these people and all this crap goes on. Yeah, I don't know. The article came from having a ton of cancellations in a row. And then one filmmaker, who I'm not sure I should name, but I had lined him up as like, he was like our plan C for a week, for one of the scheduled dates. And he was in Tampa, and so I had to fly to Tampa, and I was in Pennsylvania, because I just didn't have enough time to drive it. So I said to him, I was like, hey, I'm going to fly, I need a couch to crash on, and I need someone to get me at the airport, because I don't know anybody in Tampa. And he said, oh, well, okay, well, we might be able to do that, we might not. I'll get back to you. And I said, okay, well, great, because I have the plane tickets thing up, and just tell me which plane to get a ticket for, and I'll get a ticket for that plane. And I have not heard a word from him since. And so I was kind of in limbo for 3 or 4 days, going, well, maybe he's busy and whatnot. And now I see him on Facebook. He's done with production, I guess. He's alive. I know that. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. I mean, this is not a question of, being a good filmmaker, being a bad filmmaker. This is just like common decency of letting someone know what's going on to some extent, And I mean, we all do it, but we all do it a little bit. And I'm sure I've done it, and someone's probably going to come on here and talk about how a horrible person I am, because I left them hanging once. But, it's when someone's trying to come help you on your project, call them back.
Totally. And on a budgetary level, I mean, how are you doing with the money that you raise? You still have reserves in the tank there, and since sort of the conclusion of your Kickstarter campaign, have you been able to sort of expand on that budget? Have you been able to raise money in any kind of way?
We've been trying to. We've been having a little trouble. I have a producer in Pittsburgh who's working on sponsorships, and I think she has one lined up and has the irons are in a bunch of different fires. The budget's holding up pretty well. As long as I can get somewhere, I don't have to spend any money, because I just eat craft services and I sleep on couches. So really the costs are the travel. It's the cancellations end up getting expensive, because then I have to spin my wheels for a week or 4 or 5 days or whatever to get somewhere. But we're very actively looking for more funding, because it's just, $12,000 minus the Kickstarter fees are not really a lot of money, which is what makes the haters' comments so funny when they're like, oh, he stole all this money from all these people and blah, blah, blah. And, it's a pretty small budget. If you think about spending a year traveling and gas being $4 something a gallon.
Right. And here you are, you're showing up on set, volunteering as a PA, a set photographer, what have you. And now we understand that you've received a few things in front of the camera, where they've put you as sort of cameo appearances. Yeah,
I'm in Game Over. I play a customer who curses at somebody, which is really my specialty. If you need me, when I used to do theater in Pittsburgh, and I would help with a lot of plays, and because I wanted to sort of get to know how actors worked and whatnot. And I'm not an actor at all, but if you need someone to walk on stage, do a string of profanity at a character or at the audience, and then leave, then I'm your guy. I'm really good at that. So I end up showing up in the background of things sometimes. You need an extra or whatnot, and I try to wear a shirt from somebody else in indie film when I do end up in the background. So hopefully, if I can, I don't know where my Gregory Bain shirt went, but I try to sort of work in a promo with it if I possibly can.
Well, what would you say to actors in terms of doing that, like using that as a side way to get your foot in the door, instead of going that traditional route and, oh, I have to be paid and all of that? What would you say?
I think, you really have to have a resume to get paid. And you really, especially as an actor, like, if you haven't shown that you've if you haven't been in a couple of different things where you've been really good, and you're asking to get paid on an indie film where probably nobody's getting paid, you're just not going to get cast, because the thing about actors is there's a lot of them. And there's a lot of talented actors. And you can rewrite a script to fit an actor. It's not very hard. So, I mean, my motto with actors is if actors are difficult or they look like they're going to be difficult in any way, shape, or form, I just get somebody else. So, you know, I mean, we're all working for free on some level, at least for a little bit. So maybe it's harder in LA. I don't know, but I would think it would be easier because there's more actors. I mean, you can't go into a store without running into an actor, right?
Yeah, all throughout here, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you know how to cast, then, I mean, you can always replace an actor with a non-actor. They hate that. You just tell them to replace them. And they find ways around their problems sometimes.
Lucas, something that sort of went over our heads is that, with Year Without Rent, I guess you've actually been, there's a part of this where it's actually a featured documentary. At what point did that come into play?
Well, the thing is, there isn't officially a featured documentary. IMDb wouldn't accept us as a web series, and everyone was really some people thought it was a featured documentary, even though I never said it was. And so we just submitted it to IMDb as a featured documentary, thinking we could surely get in and get the IMDb page up. And so now there's talk. I have an idea for the featured documentary, because now everybody seems to think there is one, so we might as well do one. The idea I have is that I think it would be interesting to at the end of the year, give all the footage to another filmmaker, to a documentary filmmaker, and just sort of hand him all the footage and say, or her all the footage, and say, I want you to take a critical look at the project and the Year Without Rent, and try to determine whether or not it was a success or a failure or whatnot, and be completely honest, and for me to just sort of back off it and say, I'll be available for if you need me to interview, if you need, someone's contact information, and then other than that, let me know when it's done. Because I think it would be, to sort of take a step back from it and sort of get perspective from someone who wasn't right there in it all the time, would be probably, I think, more interesting and more helpful to people. Because otherwise, if I make it, it'll end up being, even if I try not to be, it'll end up being in support of the project, whereas somebody else could take a critical look at it and really figure out what the success and the failures were.
So what if they turn it into Overnight?
If they turn into what?
Overnight, the documentary.
Is that I haven't seen Overnight.
Oh, you haven't seen Overnight? Okay.
I never see anything anymore. I'm in my car or I'm on a set.
No, we hear you. We often have a hard time keeping up ourselves. But so that means this documentary is yet to be determined. So it's still sort of up in the air. I mean, have you thought about sort of at what point are you going to put it out there and say, hey, are there any sort of documentary editors or?
Well, that idea kind of is new. It's kind of, I've just sort of been batting it around with a few people that I've just been randomly talking to, and everyone seems to like the idea, and I think they like that it's not a big cheering section thing for the project. So then it just becomes a question of finding somebody who's not involved in the project already which eliminates quite a few people. And then just somebody who we think would be willing to do it and able to do it. So we'll probably start looking around at some point.
No, we think it's an excellent idea. It's a great way to sort of tie this together.
And as I told Marty Lang and I were talking about it, he said, I imagine at the end of the year, you were probably not going to want to look at that footage for a very long time. You're probably going to be kind of over it at that point. And you're not going to want to spend another year editing it into a feature documentary. And I was like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
The other joke is that I'll go in a room at the end of this for a month, and I will not leave that room. And someone will go, do you want to drive downtown to meet me to have a drink? And I'll go, no, I do not. You can bring the drinks here. I'm not getting in a car. No chance.
And I mean, what would be crucial to that is just capturing all those moments, all all the highs, all the lows. I mean, do you feel like you are capturing that sort of material, you know, with yourself and with others?
Yeah, you always think you can capture more, but I think I'm capturing a decent amount of good stuff. The one thing I might start doing with this new idea is, because we might not find a filmmaker until near the end, is start getting, like, filmmakers I run into, have them interview me. Maybe. So at least then there's interview footage from along the path.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things like that.
Well, you know, if you need this little recording here, just let us know.
Okay.
Just, you know, just capturing a moment in time here.
Yeah, and this would maybe be a good thing to use, although the video quality might not be great for blowing it up.
Yeah,
it's not gonna be perfect.
You're gonna have to find a way to manipulate that.
Yeah.
But,
no, I won't. Somebody else will have to find a way to do it.
but you know, one thing we've seen along the way, we've seen you in a couple different places, sort of expressing your opinion on film festivals, you know, and your take on that, sort of like, as these filmmakers, you know, or as a filmmaker yourself, as you finish a film, are film festivals, would you say that's the first destination for a lot of these smaller films? Is that where a lot of filmmakers should be directing their energy when they complete a film? And I guess that's part one, and then I'll come back with part two after that.
I mean, I'm highly critical of film festivals, and that's not really a secret. If you can get your film into a bigger festival, then you should definitely do it, because it opens more doors probably than you can otherwise. But if you're going to be shelling out $50 a pop to try to get into small festivals and have a 10% success rate, which I think is about normal, then, I mean, I'm not convinced that's a good model at all. I mean, it just strikes me as throwing good money after bad. You know, I was talking to somebody, I think it was Ross Pruden, and I said, I don't see how a lot of film festivals, the $50 submission fee is a better value than me finding someone in that city and giving them $50 worth of DVDRs of the movie and just have them hand them out at the festival. You know, because then at least you know you're in. And you might get into a festival and not screen to 50 people. So, you know, that's a lot of money out of your budget that should be on screen or should be somewhere else that you're just. And I think, you know, I think film festivals, there's notable exceptions like Flyway and the New Mexico one, but I think a lot of film festivals just view filmmakers as a revenue stream, and they don't care one iota about the filmmakers. But, you know, if all of us filmmakers, we just stopped paying submission fees, then they would have to figure out something else to do. They would have to find that money somewhere else. And they keep going, oh, we can't survive without submission fees. And I go, well, that's not really my problem. That's really your problem. You know, I already raised my money for my movie. I'm not raising money to fund your film festival. That's kind of ridiculous.
You know, and in that vein, I mean, these productions that you're on, you know, have you gotten into discussion with the filmmakers? I mean, are a lot of these filmmakers, a lot of these sets you've been on, are they planning on going the festival route? I mean, what are they talking about? Are they even thinking about distribution in the production stage?
Some of them are, yeah. Some of them are thinking about self-distribution and going online. Sean and I were talking about that yesterday, because his film is screening tonight over at the Red Vic. So if you're in San Francisco and this goes online before then
there you go.
By all means, go see the annual. But I think he's thinking of just skipping the festival circuit for the most part. I mean, we skipped the festival circuit for my first feature, and I don't really miss it. I didn't really miss it that much. I just didn't get to meet the people I wish I had met, but I saved a lot of money in the process.
And then we understand that you had the comments section disabled from your posts on Filmmaker magazine. Can you tell us your reasons for doing that?
Oh, no, I didn't do that.
You didn't? Okay.
Oh, I had nothing to do with that. I just saw it today, and I thought it was funny. I think that was all Scott.
Huh. And do you know what's at the heart of that? Do you know why he might have done that?
He mentioned it on Twitter as being kind of a flame war, and I think he just figured it stopped being productive.
Okay.
Is my guess. I mean, I don't think he's trying to quell dissent or anything like that. I just think it was just not. It's from what I heard, they were just going around in circles, and so it wasn't really. There was no point to it being there.
It wasn't productive.
I always say, you know, because I don't allow anonymous comments on my blog, and I always tell people, like, you're more than welcome to get your own blog and talk about me all you want. And, you know, no one's going to stop you. It's not really censorship. You can still talk about somebody. You just, you know, I'm just not going to waste my time with it. And that's, I mean, I imagine that's part of it.
Right. So what's on deck for you from here? What do you have planned?
Well, I'm trying to get to New York, which is what I was trying to figure out today, because my buddy Brian Kazmark is filming his first feature in New York right now. But getting from New York to from San Francisco to New York is not exactly cheap. We're trying to keep the budget, you know, under control. Also, he lost his apartment, because when I'm in New York, I normally stay with him. He lost his apartment. He had a ridiculously awesome apartment. And they sold the building or something. And so he's sleeping on couches now while he's trying to direct his first feature. So he doesn't really have a place for me to stay anyway, so it's kind of complicated. And I have to be back in San Francisco for Sean's film that starts on the 5th, I think. And then down to LA for Faber.
Okay. Well, I mean, we'll certainly keep us posted as you're going to swing through
please.
LA. You know, we'd love the opportunity to meet you in person.
It would be fun, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be fun. You know, and how are you holding up, Lucas? I mean, you know, here you are. You're, you know, 3 to 4 months into this. I mean, you know, are you going to be able to get through this whole year?
Hopefully. If I don't drive off a cliff, but trying to tweet while I'm driving. I mean, that's probably part of it.
You know, I mean, how's it been on the day-to-day level? You know, for people like us on the outside, it's that you know, it's that much easier for us to sort of like follow your posts or follow you from one film set to another, from one state to another. But you're really in the grind. I mean, you're the one that's putting in the many hours of travel. You're the one that's putting in all these hours on set, and on top of that, I mean, the amount of press that you're creating. You know, the content that you're creating day in, day out. It's just overwhelming for us sometimes just to follow.
Well, you know, I mean, you kind of give up your life on some level. So a lot of the stuff that takes up your time when you live somewhere is gone. So there's that benefit. The thing that I didn't really factor in in the beginning was when you finish like a 5-day shoot and everybody goes home and sleeps for like 3 days. But then I have to get in a car and drive 400 miles to the next one. Yeah. So it's been, part of it has been just trying to work in extra days off in between shoots, or not trying to overbook myself in terms of things. And I've started getting into the habit of doing hotel rooms, because if I have to go a distance in a short period of time, it's just really helpful to be able to absolutely sleep for 10 hours and not have to talk to anybody. And I mean, just getting the Wi-Fi has been the hardest thing. One of the hardest things has been Wi-Fi connections, because the Wi-Fi, like in Seattle, is awful. It's really awful Wi-Fi in Seattle, like citywide. Wow. But yeah, it's a grind. It's a little exhausting, you know, and it's a little bit of a lonely existence because you see all these people, but then you're in and out of town in a couple days. So we'll see how I'm holding up in another 3 months, I guess.
What's been the biggest takeaway from all this? The biggest sort of surprise that you weren't expecting, you know, positive or negative? What's been the biggest shocker?
I think the biggest surprise has probably been well, I don't know. Maybe the most pleasant surprise is how accommodating people have been. Other than cancellations, like people are really, really happy to have me in town once they decide to have me in town. Let's say. I don't buy a lot of drinks when we go places, because people are like, "Oh, are you kidding me? No, I got your beer. I got it." Nice. So that's been a nice surprise. The grind has been more of a grind than I thought it might be. So, and I think I've been doing more content than I planned on, and so I've been trying to keep that up because I don't want to short anybody on whatever publicity bump they might get from it.
And have you noticed, you know, I mean, have they been appreciative of sort of the publicity bump that they've gotten?
Yeah, I think so for the most part. I think they like, because it runs in Mubi and it runs on FilmCourage and the filmmaker, everybody loves the filmmaker articles, obviously, because what filmmaker doesn't want to see their project, or at least on one page. And so I think they really like that. I read Mattson's quote in the in the Filmmaker article that the worry is of what I might say when I'm on set, because I don't really have any filter. Just in general, I'm not really a filtered person, but they have no real control over whatever I write about their production. And I hadn't really thought about that as being a concern for the films, because I know internally that I'm not going to do a hatchet job on anybody, but they don't know that because I'm just some guy on Twitter, who raised a bunch of money and is going to show up.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe that was that's probably been a pretty big surprise, that I didn't think that would be a concern of people's.
Interesting.
And it makes sense if you think about it, because you don't want someone showing up and then saying, "Oh, this is the worst movie. It's so terrible. It's going to be awful." Blah 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 blah.
Right.
But I don't think I've said that about anybody yet. I've generally scaled back any negative comments.
Well, I mean, this has been sort of a great sort of run through, a nice checkpoint for us, and hopefully for those that are going to tune in here. And we appreciate you taking time out, Lucas.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, and we have a if because gas is $1 more a gallon than it was when we budgeted. So if you go to the webpage and you see a little PayPal button that says "Keep us on the road," that does work.
Okay.
So feel free to click it and throw $5 in there or whatever, and be greatly appreciated.
And that's a year without rent, or a year without rent?
A yearwithoutrent.com.
A yearwithoutrent.com. For those tuned in, want to keep Lucas on the road.
Great.
Lucas, we're excited about the possibility, the opportunity to meet you soon.
Yep.
In the near future here, and we're gonna hopefully do this again at the next checkpoint.
Yeah.
Okay.
And see how you're holding up.
Provided I'm still alive.
Yes.
You
won't even entertain that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, we're big supporters and big believers. Thank you, Lucas, for taking time out.
Oh, you guys are hugely helpful. It's and I think we would be pretty far up the creek without a paddle without you guys. So, I can't express with words how much we appreciate it. Your guys' support.
No, thank you.
I told Jake Stetler that. He's like, "Well, yeah, of course."
Well, big shout out to Jake Stetler.
Yeah, thank you, Jake.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, and
I think his movie is picture locked. Actually, I think I heard that. I think No Sanctuary is almost done.
That's good to hear.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Jake's working hard.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
All right.
Any last words, Karen?
All right. Thank you, Lucas. Lucas McNelly, here without rent. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.
Talk to you soon.